Hi, my name is Reed Silverne. The name of this show is Fed Pride. The reason it's called Fed Pride is because I'm a federal worker and proud of it. There's all kinds of absolutely important and vital things going on in the world and in the USA, and I'm not going to talk about hardly any of them. Among the important things are Iraq, absolutely the worst month in years already. As of Friday, 27th of October, over 90 Americans killed, total chaos in Baghdad, and changed strategy, or at least a changed word for what our strategy is called, not called Stay the Course. And then there's an election coming on in 2 weeks. Looks like the Republicans may lose a house or two. Absolutely vital. Over the next 2 years, probably we'll be talking about it, but I'm not going to talk about it. North Korea, absolutely going wild. Nuclear test attempted a couple of weeks ago. Probably one of the most important things going on in foreign policy, period, including our war in Iraq. Am I going to talk about it? Maybe later, but not right now. Right now I'm going to talk about the absolutely earth-shaking, vital story that they're drilling for natural gas right in the middle of the city of Fort Worth, Texas. What does this mean to me? What does this mean to you? Probably not a lot. Why is it important? It's important because it's indicative of a sea change in energy that's going to benefit America in the next 5 or 10 years. And that is that as long as OPEC and the oil industry and the natural gas industry and the energy industry keep prices ridiculously high, they are going to price imported energy completely out of the market. And when I say high, the price of oil has dropped from $76 a barrel, I think it might have topped out at 78, is now below 60, and still is too high. What do I mean by too high? I mean too high in the sense, the economics 101, or the economics 1 sense, that a monopoly doesn't survive, doesn't thrive, doesn't force its way on the others by having high prices. Monopoly thrives by driving their competition out by having low prices. And this is a wonderful example of that. Now, what you see over here, and I'm going to see if I can get my cursor here on the screen. This is Fort Worth over here. And over here is the 82 or 820 freeway. I'm going to look at the map that I'm looking at to see where that is. And over here, there's drilling rigs for natural gas. And a lot of them are over here to the west or to the east of this lake over here, which is called Eagle Mountain Lake. And the story was originally about a Girl Scout camp right about here that is selling the rights to the natural gas under a suburban Girl Scout camp. And it also goes on to churches that are basically in this area down here, and all kinds of urban areas in Fort Worth. Well, what's the basic situation? The basic situation is there is 27 billion cubic feet of natural gas in the area, in the region of Fort Worth, Texas. Some of it's to the north, some of it's to the center, but ironically, it centers right under the big office buildings in the middle of downtown Fort Worth. Now, in the past, this is natural gas that is in cracks and fissures of shale. Now, I've been talking about oil shale. This is not oil shale. These are shale structures that are underneath this land, about 7,000 feet. And in the cracks and the fissures of this shale, natural gas is collected. And in fact, quite a bit of natural gas is collected. And it's about 27 billion cubic feet. And it's called the Barnett Shale Formation. And it covers this little stretch of Texas, goes right through the city of Fort Worth. And for years and years and years, the oil industry and the natural gas industry thought that even though this was their hometown, and Dallas-Fort Worth, everybody remembers the show Dallas, oil industry is really more centered in Houston, but Dallas is the financial capital of Texas, and there's a lot of oil companies there too. And a lot of the real big major natural gas and oil companies are over there, and they've been ignoring the fact that they are sitting on a natural gas shelf. Now, all the conventional wisdom, you know, I've gone through this in some other shows about energy, is that America has reducing sources of natural gas. Some of the old natural gas fields are going down, and we're getting less and less natural gas out of it. California and other environmentally oriented states have gone away from coal and over to natural gas in order to come up with clean electricity. But in fact, there's lots and lots of natural gas. And the natural gas was pushed up actually quite artificially, because the cost of bringing natural gas out of the ground once the drilling rig has been put there, once the pipelines have been placed, is very, very low. So when natural gas went up, the profits in natural gas were just tremendous, absolutely tremendous. And a lot of companies, El Paso Natural Gas, Enron, which started out as a natural gas company, just made a lot of money out of it. And basically, they went from a regulated market to a spot traded market. A spot traded market traded in, I think, a billion cubic feet of natural gas. I don't know how many homes that represents. And America uses about 1.5 billion barrels of natural gas a year. Well, no, the 27 billion barrels represents 1.5 years. So about 2.5% of our production. So it looks like it's about 20 billion barrels, or 20 billion cubic feet. I gotta stop mixing two things up. But it's a lot of natural gas, and it represents a lot of BTUs. So what's the upshot of this? The upshot of this is that they are digging natural gas wells underneath churches, in the middle of towns, in parks. The city of Fort Worth has sold the oil drilling rights to 2,400 acres of city land, mostly in parks and places like that. Some people are really irritated about it. And a lot of people are even more irritated because how do you really get your royalties out of it? Because what they're doing is they're drilling down, and with a new technology that's just come into play in the 90s, they're drilling sideways, sometimes for a half a mile or a mile, underneath urban areas with thousands of property owners. So the question is, how do they benefit? How do they get royalties when these things are going underneath 7,000 feet underneath your home? And what it's doing is looking for these little pockets of natural gas, these holes and fractures in this oil or this shale, and finding tremendous amounts of it. So as a matter of fact, that Fort Worth area, that Barrett structure, produces already 2.5% of our natural gas, and could produce up to, or 1.5%, could produce up to 3 or 4%. Now that doesn't seem like much, but again, the high price of energy has created a new technology, and this new technology is just coming in. And apparently this kind of shale, fractured shale, exists in many parts of the country, and there's going to be a lot of natural gas that's going to be exploited by it. What's the importance of that? The importance of that is that the more energy and electricity we produce from natural gas, the more we produce from coal, which is domestic, the less energy we're going to need to import from abroad. And why do we need to do that? And I've gone through that in some other shows, but what the heck? I got plenty of time. I'll talk about it again. A lot of our imports come from our enemies. I'm not going to say people that may be turning, the people that may become our enemies, people that may become Islamic extremists. I am saying our enemies. Outright want to kill all Americans, enemies. We actually import some oil from Iran, not a lot, because we don't have to. And we import 1.4 million barrels a day from Venezuela, where Hugo Chavez comes to the UN and insults our country directly, wants to create an entire set of satellites of anti-American countries in Latin America. Our backyard, well, maybe, maybe not, but certainly in our region. And we're importing 1.4 million barrels a day. That represents $60 a barrel. That represents over $100 million a day to a dictator and a tyrant who hates us directly. And it's coming out of our own pocket. Now, another little twist on this whole thing is that Hugo Chavez and his Venezuelan company, oil company that he's taken over in the last couple of years. For a long time, that oil company was his number one opponent, but he's managed to take it over through referendums of the Venezuelan people. And now it is owned by the party and pretty much controlled directly by Hugo Chavez himself. Now, let's not forget, Hugo Chavez is the guy who went to Castro on his sickbed and wished him well. And on top of that, Cuba economically has become literally a satellite of Hugo Chavez. So we're putting money into Venezuela, and Venezuela is putting money and subsidizing communist Cuba. So that kind of tells you a little bit where he's coming from. He owns, his oil company owns Citgo. That's City Gas, an oil company. Citgo is mostly in the East Coast, but I have seen some Citgos right here in Tucson, or at least one. And I swear to you, the American people should boycott Citgo. Citgo is owned directly by Hugo Chavez's oil company. Its profits go directly to the government of Venezuela. It doesn't stop at go. And it is so egregious. And Citgo is so obvious about its connection to the government of Venezuela that the Southlands Corporation owns 7-Eleven, which for years was Citgo's biggest customer. In fact, they had basically their gas pumps were Citgo gas. They would say Citgo at these 7-Eleven stores. And 7-Eleven is all over, mostly in the South, but all over Southern California, where I used to live. Not a lot of 7-Elevens here. There's a few, but they don't seem to have gas stations here. But they went and fired Citgo and told them to pack up, get out, that they didn't want any Citgo gas pumps and to import any Citgo gas and any 7-Eleven in the entire country. And this was after Hugo Chavez's speech. To that, I say, hooray. You actually care about national security, which is more than I can say about the country even allowing, because oil is fungible, they will sell it somewhere else, but why do we have to pay 1 penny for it? Most of the gas that's coming in from Venezuela is coming in through two sources. One is Citgo itself, which is a guarantee that even if the other American oil companies drop out, that Hugo Chavez will still suck money out of its worst enemy, and we will have a trade deficit with a country that wants to destroy us, and I'm not kidding. If you listen to his speeches, he is that blunt about it. So what the heck is going on? Why do we import an a ounce, much less a barrel, of oil from a country that is intent on our destruction. Do we have to? Absolutely not, in my opinion. I think that there's plenty of sources that are not Venezuela. And we should make it clear because, yeah, Venezuela can put oil on a tanker and send it to Japan all the way around all of South America and through the entire Pacific. And it's going to be just a little bit more expensive than if they send it directly across the Caribbean to America. Now, the other company that imports oil from Venezuela is ExxonMobil, the largest oil company that in America, and the most profitable. They made $100 billion last year, or I think it's 34 billion, 100 billion for the whole oil industry. Pure profit, pure utter profit. Now that profit's going down a little bit, but there's absolutely no reason why anybody, any American, needs to buy anything from Citgo. I'm amazed that after Chavez's speech and after it came out, it was already well known, but only to people who actually read business pages or follow the oil industry, that Citgo was owned by the Venezuelan National Oil Company. But there it was. And then after he came to America, insulted us on our own soil at the UN, people still buy oil and gas from Citgo. I'm amazed that there weren't demonstrations against him. I'm amazed that there weren't letters to the editor saying, boycott Citgo. There's absolutely no reason. If the Iranians bought a gas chain in the United States, I would be amazed at the reaction that we would get from that, and it wouldn't be positive. And now here we got the Venezuelans owning a chain of gas stations in the United States. I have to really give Southland and 7-Eleven a pat in the back, because they said, absolutely not. This gets out. People realize this. They're going to boycott 7-Eleven. And I encourage people to go to 7-Eleven, go buy a cup of coffee, because they said, we are kicking Citgo out of our stations, and they can go and sell their gas somewhere else. So that's basically it on that issue. So what is this about natural gas? Natural gas, the key to this whole story about the natural gas underneath Fort Worth, Texas, is that it's being developed by the little guys. Devon Oil Company, they have a picture of Devon over here. A couple of the other smaller oil companies are going in. He locked up most of these rights, and he's selling spots to Chesapeake Energy. So the really big players in natural gas, El Paso Natural Gas, and the big oil companies, whoever took over Enron, I don't know who that was. There's a few natural gas companies out there that own the pipelines and own a lot of the natural gas. They're still in the big natural gas fields and working the big pipelines. The little guys are going in there because the price of natural gas, which actually went down 20%, still historically incredibly high. And the profits around it, once you drill, are amazing, because the cost of bringing it up, it has its own pressure. Cost of bringing it up is very, very cheap. So natural gas, I don't believe that America's actual production of natural gas is going to go down. I believe that as long as oil is $60 a barrel and natural gas is where it is, even though it's lower than it was, there's going to be more energy than we could possibly shake a stick at. Where else is that going on? Gulf of Mexico. Gulf of Mexico, there's a shelf out in deep water, 20,000 feet deep. And then a far depth below that, another 10,000 feet, there is an unbelievable amount of oil, 27 billion barrels. And this 27 billion barrels has just been found. Has it really just been found? No, they've suspected it's there for years. But the technology wasn't there to get it, or it wasn't there to build these deep water rigs to get it at $20 a barrel. It costs about $30 to $35 a barrel only after they dig the wells, and they found 20,000 barrel day well under the Gulf of Mexico. And on top of that, here's 17 billion barrels. There's another 10 billion barrels in the very, very similar area in deep water off of Mexico. So that's an extra 27 billion barrels. Wasn't counted before. All North America, all NAFTA. Eventually, if they wanted to, could replace 2 to 3 million barrels a day of oil imports. And that would replace all the oil imports that America proper, gets from Venezuela, from Iraq, from Iran, and possibly every Middle Eastern country except Saudi Arabia. And then, if we start exploiting and producing oil shale, they can get 1 million barrels of oil shale per acre in this gigantic field on the Green River in Montana and Utah. Shell has figured out a way to do this by heating the oil in the ground inside the acre and then freezing the water on the edges so that it becomes a liquid little pool and then is brought up in a drill right in the middle. And this apparently works for about $30 to $35 a barrel. So unless OPEC drops the price of oil back down into the 20s, that's another potential 2 to 3 million barrels a day. What does that mean? That means that we don't have to import any oil at all from Saudi Arabia. The entire Middle East would not be exporting 1 barrel of oil to us. We wouldn't need anything from Venezuela or any satellite that Venezuela may want to create. We would not be exactly energy independent, but we would only be importing oil from our real friends. Right now, our oil imports, our total oil needs, 60% is met within NAFTA, NAFTA being Mexico, which sells us 2 million barrels a day, Canada, which sells us 2 million, that's going to go up to 3 million barrels a day, and America, which is maybe only 6.5 of outright oil, but with oil and what they call hydrocarbon liquids, is about 8 million barrels a day. So right now we're already getting 60%. If we get 2 or 3 million barrels a day from these deep water fields in the Gulf of Mexico, if we get another 2 or 3 million barrels a day from the oil shale, that would be another 6 million. That'd be another 20%. We'd be up to 80%, and we would definitely only need to import a barrel of oil from possibly Nigeria, which is friendly, Angola, which is friendly, Brazil, which is somewhat friendly, or nations in that area. And we may eventually become at least independent within North and South America. So that would be better done if we would get rid of Chavez, and of course we haven't been able to do that yet. So the name of the show is Fed Pride. The reason it's called Fed Pride is because I'm a federal employee and proud of it. And this show usually airs Saturdays and Tuesdays. And I still got 45 seconds to go. So I'm going to talk a little bit about overall my aim, and to sum up the whole show, is that America be more energy independent. I think it's a threat to our national security. I think Citgo, which is owned by the government of Hugo Chavez's Venezuela, is a threat to our security. I think that Citgo oil and gas, no American should buy from them, and they should be boycotted to the point where they need to sell to an American. And that alternative, normal fossil energy will be the remain.